titles without trials. Modernity has taken away our rites of passage. They don't allow us to understand our initiations. So what happens to the man? Well, like with the tree, when the roots are cut, the tree doesn't fall right away. It dries slowly from the inside until one day the wind takes it and it dies. Without lineage, a man becomes a wanderer in his own body, longing for a belonging, really, you can't name it. Right? Stories that used to be told by our grandparents, our grandfathers, let's just say, because we're talking about men, right? Under the stars, they have been replaced by screens, telling a man who to be, what to buy, and why he's not enough unless he performs. Modernity replaced the village. Now we have a global village, all full of artificial light. Too much light. It taught men to forget what they've come from, who they've come from, and worse, they stopped asking.
Yo, 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 lovers. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. We're the O'Neills. You're here with Meg and Jacob.
And this is the place we have really uncensored conversations about sex, intimacy, and relationships. We're super excited you're here. Enjoy this episode.
Yo, what up, lovers? Welcome back to another episode of Sex, Love, and Everything in Between. Meg is currently asleep with Oisin in bed. We've just driven 7 hours back to my hometown, and it's so beautiful to have an incredible guest here today who I'm really excited to. Personally, I'm a bit selfish in this. I just want to chat to this man and really learn from him and really ask him questions that I want to know the answers to. So, brother, welcome, Kale Kaalehaki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kale. Yeah, it's good to be
Yeah.
here. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know this man, I met him at Sacred Sons just over a year ago, and what I got to experience was his facilitation of men's work in a variety of different processes and workshops. And to this day, I'm like still deeply, deeply grateful for what I got to experience. There was a huge, huge uh, processing of some grief that I didn't even realize I was carrying from a friend that committed suicide 10 over 10 years ago, and the grief that I was holding around all of the fallout that came after it, and the fallout that happened with close friends, with family, and uh, all of this grief that was circulating that none of us knew what to do with. So, man, thank you so much for what you give to the world, especially what you gave to me on that weekend. And also, bro, I just want to acknowledge, witnessing you online and seeing what you create and your authenticity and how deeply, just deeply real you are, and seeing you go through the journey of grief recently, and then also, seeing you stepping into fatherhood really soon, and then also just the way that you deliver your work, man. It's deeply inspiring for me, and I would, I'm very happy, very humbly say that you're someone that I look up to and I'm influenced by in the way that I choose to do my work as well, man. So thank you for being here.
Oh man, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. Yeah, just the recognition. Yeah, well received. And also, yeah, thanks for having this podcast too, for getting, knowledge and information and yeah, just spreading that is so important. I have this saying that's like keep it local, spread it global. And so I'm grateful to be here with you. And yeah, for the 7 hour drive, back to the home country. So
Yeah,
thanks for
man.
making the time.
Bro, yeah, no, definitely. I want to really start at the core of the conversation, what I feel the conversation is going to be around, and we can then follow the threads. But man, like I'd love for you to, if you could just, share with us what culture is and what it means to you, and what you feel what pivotal role it's going to play moving forward for humanity. I'd love to hear from like just a general share on what culture is.
Yeah, it's great. This is a way that I kind of like to bring it forward, for people is um, we all come through a cultural understanding, by the way that we grow up, our parentage, those that we, went to school with, our own peer groups, extended family, communities. So there's a lot of ways to understand culture, but the way I like to bring it forward is what is a rooted culture and what does that involve and what is a cultureless culture? Right. And so the ways I like to speak on it is not that, oh, antagonizing anybody or anything, but just looking at, okay, this is how it's played out. This is what we are. We are the beneficiaries of the things that have been left behind. What has happened, when you have a culture that is rooted in belonging, well, they'll pass down knowledge and wisdom through generations. But if you have one that's cultureless, like modernity, then you'll have something that's manufactured or fast-tracked or trend-based, right? Based in technology or transactions and efficiency towards things of the future that is unknown. Whereas a rooted culture looks at language and oral traditions as a way to bring story into people's lives, into communities' lives. They have ceremony and prayer and ritual. Community is one that is kinship, and it's not just about being reliant on each other, but how do we provide for one another and bring in these next generations. And so that's kind of how I like to see it for people, because it's really important to know that, you know, I am a modern person too. We're using these technologies, these mediums right now. Just because I'm an indigenous man doesn't mean like somehow I want to go back to the past, which a lot of people tend to get confused with. That's not what I'm saying. There's no going back. I'm talking about now, a new old way. How do we carry on the things that our ancestors, had done for us for hundreds of thousands of years to the now we're here where we're avoiding our grief. We don't know what it takes to be present at birth or even with death. We mask, ourselves, our feelings with pleasure and impulses, right? Right? Sexual energy, just to get that off real quick. And busyness, workaholic is a thing. Yeah, this fast, globalized, locationless thing. What happened to the slow and the seasonal and the place-based, right? What happened to the teachings of our elders and our ancestors, rather than, looking at a screen for a man to figure out who he is alone, and especially when it's towards promoting individualism, self-righteousness, self-interestedness. What happened to reciprocity and sacrifice?
Mm.
And how does that grow, into, let's just talk about men, right? What are the things that are consequences of that? What happens, to men when we don't understand the measurement of our own souls and what we're in service to and the story that we have, and rather we're measured by our successes of money, fame, and speed and technology. So, that's kind of how I go with this one. Yeah, I think about that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, man, it's something that I'm only just really starting to try to understand for myself. Like living in Australia, being white, having the
Hmm.
indigenous here, and having the short history that I'm aware of, it hasn't been awesome. So it's like, cool, that's happened. What are we going to do now about it? And
Hmm.
how are we going to start to build something that is rooted? And I love what you said, ritual, prayer, ceremony.
Yeah.
For most of my life, I was seeking that. I was seeking some kind
Hmm.
of ritual, some kind of prayer, some kind of ceremony. And even so, I'm just at my family home and I looked in my bedroom and I've got a cupboard, and on top of the cupboard, there's all of these photos of all of my people. Like, and I'm like, oh, there's an altar in my
Yeah.
I was doing ritual without even knowing it.
Yeah,
But
you're
for
doing the thing.
but I think for a lot of men, myself included, I feel like we weren't educated on the the ways of being in ritual, the ways of being in ceremony, the ways of being in prayer, and I found myself stumbling along, and I very much got caught up in the individualism way of being, that I don't need anyone. I just need to look after me. And then I found entrepreneurship, which was kind of like individualism on steroids. It's like, I don't need anyone. I can work from my laptop in any location, and I can
Mhm.
utilize cheap labor from here, and I can drop ship this and I can e-com that. And there was this huge, uh, from someone that grew up in a small town, it was almost like this is the answer to all of my problems. And I ended
Mhm.
up feeling way more alone than I've ever felt on my entrepreneurship journey, which then led me to finding, my teachers, which then led me to finding ritual, ceremony, and prayer, which then brought me back to to some form of remembering, which I'm now learning to walk with a little more humility, a little more reciprocity, a little more, freedom is my own responsibility, and service is what I can give when I'm free. So
Right.
yeah, man, I'd love for you to maybe speak on, if you can, like around this, what you see for men when they don't have a rooted culture, and how that influences their work and especially their relate. We have a lot of guys listen to this podcast on for relationship stuff, but
Yeah.
a man that doesn't have access to, or hasn't been immersed in rooted culture, How does that influence and impact his work and his relationships, or how have you seen it unfold?
Yeah, well, this is a great question because there's many areas, right? Um, Let me start here. So the things that you spoke about, right? Like you yourself have been searching for certain things about connection and belonging, and you're confronted with, again, the identity of whiteness. Yeah, like I'm a white man here in this land, and there's native people, indigenous people, and they're tribal, and they were here first. And so you're born into this thing of your descendancy. And you weren't, necessarily like raised by the people who wanted to remember all of that either, right? Of like what happened to them. All right, so this is the point of contact that I like to bring up for a lot of people. And it doesn't matter, if you're white, black, or brown, because it affected us all, or yellow, however you want to describe it. Colorism is the thing that causes our separation. And so what happened to our people, you know? Well, some may say colonization, right? People's land and language and life was restricted in the name of civilization, right? This civilized advancement. And we could look as far back as to the Roman Empire or even the Assyrian to say, oh, I have German ancestry. I have English, Scottish, and Irish. I have Norwegian in me. I actually have that. And so when I look at that, I'm like, oh, okay, I see what it was. It was the growth of empire, of imperialism that had happened. And then we look at religion as a place for conquest, where the sacred was externalized, institutionalized, weaponized, so these things could happen. And then different ways of governance, right? So we're looking at wars and migrations, and we bring this up. And education as it is not being taught about the historical, relevance of people that have come that are now gone, extinct even, or on the brink of extinction or nearly out. So we're taught to forget because we've been uprooted, because we were cut from it and we've been displaced. So I don't know who's feeling worse or whose experience of hell, is worse because it's happening. It's either it's happening now or it has happened and now we're just participating in what it is. And so for someone like yourself, you're like, oh shoot, I actually have pictures of my kinfolk, on an altar that I look at. That's a ritual that your ancestors, were singing for you to do. It wasn't that, oh, this isn't a worthy cause. It is a worthy cause because those people are living in the very things I've been talking about. So what happens to a man, right? What happens to a man? So we're looking at things of, so if a man doesn't understand himself as a griever, but only as like, say, a king, then that's an illusion. Because where is the man and all of that if you don't know how to understand the grieving? There's just a king. And everybody knows like when there's a king, then there's a castle. And when there's a castle, there's a kingdom and everything else. So where's the realness in all of that? Because I don't see very many castles anymore. You know, I see a lot of men that are wounded and they see the world around them and they're picking out enemies because they forgot how to honor. They forgot how to place offerings. They forgot how to become medicine for a village. And so it's one way is like when we see, let's say, just the overarching modern man, they forget culture because they want to be free, right? Entrepreneurship. I want to be free. All my problems are gonna be solved if I just do this. If I make more money, then I'll be liberated from all these things, right? Now that's consumption. It's a way to say that if I have more of the very thing that they're telling me is who I am, then I will be more. Then I will be self-sufficient and self-reliant and self-made. But you're just feeding on the machine. You're just active muscle, for this thing that wants to use you anyway. So a man without connection to his ancestral knowledge is just a house with no foundation. It doesn't matter how high he builds. Eventually he will collapse. And many times, people can assume that, what I'm saying is just, that's just a story. I'm fine. I'm doing just fine. I've got the money. I'm strong. I got six-pack abs. I can do everything. I have it all together. But what is the real capacity that you have to protect life and to praise that which is fragile? right? To me, that sounds like boys acting as men,
Mm.
you know. How do you understand yourself not only as the king, but also as the beggar? How can you be a warrior and a lover? How can you be the adolescent and the elder in your elder lessons?
Mm.
And a man who hasn't actually died to the things that he thinks he clings on to for power and control and performance and for pride, he really doesn't know who he is deep down because he's left unproven. Titles without trials. Modernity has taken away our rites of passage. They don't allow us to understand our initiations. So what happens to the man? Well, like with the tree, when the roots are cut, the tree doesn't fall right away. It dries slowly from the inside until one day the wind takes it and it dies. Without lineage, a man becomes a wanderer in his own body, longing for a belonging, but he can't name it. Right? Stories that used to be told by our grandparents, our grandfathers, let's just say, because we're talking about men, right? Under the stars, they have been replaced by screens, telling a man who to be, what to buy, and why he's not enough unless he performs. Modernity replaced the village. Now we have a global village, all full of artificial light. Too much light. It taught men to forget what they've come from, who they've come from, and worse, they stopped asking. Memory isn't something that is just stored in the brain. It lives in your bones, in songs, in the way you tie yourself to the obligations of the people that have come before you and the people that are coming after you. It lives in the way that you bury your dead and how you care for them. So yeah, it's a big thing. You know,
Mm.
the man must ask himself, it's like, am I whole? Like where is the parts that are missing? What are the fragments? What are the frayed edges of myself? Not for my own comfort or not for the control because I need safety, but connection and contribution, a place inside of this great song that's been sung long before I arrived. What did my people praise? What did they grieve? What part of the world did they feed with their presence? And then we're beginning again. So
Mm.
a man raised in modernity is exiled from meaning. He's taught to compete instead of contribute. He might build an empire, but he'll die without ever being seen for who he truly is. And that's what I think is the hungry ghost of masculinity today.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we've been really sitting with this as a group of men recently around like how do I become the meest me? How do I become the Jacobist Jacob rather than being rather than becoming
Yeah.
the man about town or the man on the hill that knows this and knows that and has this and does this. Uh,
Yeah.
and we've really been another thing that we've really been checking each other on is our where are we regulating above the rite of passage? Where do we keep regulating and just reaching for the next thing? Regulate, reach, and just keep stacking acorns as dollars and then not actually going into the rite of passage, man. Going into what you said, like become grievers, actually be with death.
Yeah.
Um, I find this to be like, I don't know if you've witnessed this, but I've seen a lot of men build success through extreme regulation. And then when life
Yeah.
actually asks for them to dance or to sing, they turn to water. They turn to dust because they don't have
Yeah.
the they're not spirit fed in that
Yeah.
way, which is something that I've really noticed in a lot of the Australian landscape. Is a lot of guys are warriors. And they regulate and they train and they regulate and they train, but none of them ever actually break through through
Right.
that the rite of passage, man. So I'd love your take on that because that's something I'm still formulating my perspective on because I'm going through it myself.
Yeah. You mean like the rite of passage or what's the question?
Okay, do you what's the difference between a man that's gone through a rite of passage and a man that's just gotten really good at regulating his nervous system with tools?
Hmm, that's a good question.
Mm.
Let's talk about that. Yeah, this is a good one. Um, the thing that I think about first is the difference between initiations and rites of passage, right? Um, so initiation are things that happen to you unwillingly, right? So like let's say like your puberty, right? When you enter puberty
Mm.
and the hormones change now, your body changes. And then now the point of puberty is so now you can procreate, right? You can you're now a viable, specimen to then procreate and bring in the next generation. Um, and then with that in this time, what do kids learn about their puberty? In the States, they go to public education and they'll receive, sex education class. And that's pretty much about it because in the society, we don't want to talk about those things. We don't want to talk about sex, even though it's prevalent everywhere because sex sells, even though it's accessible at any moment on your phone and there's the porn addiction is running rampant, but nobody wants to have a conversation about that. And that's what I see as part of the Western societal cover up, right? Is part of that hungry ghost is that the sexual energy is being sapped from our young men because they weren't given the proper rites of passage during their initiations of puberty. So the difference is that an initiation is going to happen to you unwillingly. You don't get to decide it. It's just there. The rites of passage is the opportunity for the village to come around and to acknowledge that you have crossed this natural primal threshold into something else. The boy must die for the man to live. And then you hear that in a lot of ancient wisdoms that come from traditional societies, First Nation peoples, wherever they may be, because it is like the boy has to die. And why is that? Because he has attachments to his mother, to his father. He has attachments to the comforts of his life when he was being cared for and taken care of, and all of the comforts and ease that he had. Now you have to go into the world and provide for the village. And so if you're not doing that, and there is no village, then what do? You provide for yourself. And so, what is the difference between a man that goes through a rite of passage and one that knows how to regulate their nervous system with tools? Is such an awesome question, because in and of itself, in the question it says, because I haven't had a rite of passage, because those things haven't been around in my life, I've looked to tools to help me with my nervous system. Where as a baby, right? How old is your baby?
6 months.
6 months, your baby, right? So your baby's nervous system is directly attached to his mom, to the mom. Even though they're outside now, it's like they still there. Whatever she go through, they gonna go through. Is that boy?
Boy, yeah.
Boy. So he's his mom's baby.
Mm.
You're the dad, and he'll self-regulate with you, but neither one of you are tools. You were there for your initiation into fatherhood as much as she was initiated into motherhood. And then there's a rite of passage that will come, which the baby is giving to you because that's your village now.
Mm.
So his very presence in this little bundle of this living ancestor, who come around the way now, embodied from a long time ago, yeah, is like now here with you as your son. That one is there for you now to give you focus and understanding, because now you have to look at them as a reminder every single day of like what that initiation was, and he is giving you that rite of passage. So we have it in us, but the thing is that we've outsourced so much of ourselves that is already natural and inherent to authority figures, to what you call that, thought leaders, to these influencers, to these people who've come into our lives to say, hey, this is what it means to be you. However, what we're seeing is that a rite of passage that comes through with the village, so let's get back to that point, is that threshold moment. It's a designed event through ceremony, prayer, and ritual, CPR, right? So when a body is asphyxiated and cannot breathe, we offer them CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, yeah? What do you do with a society that's forgotten how to breathe? And when I say breathing, I don't just mean like how you fill your lungs and hold it for a few seconds and box breathe. I'm talking about the last breath and the first breath. Baby born,
Mm.
scream. We forgot about that, so we need ceremony, prayer, and ritual. We need CPR,
Mm.
right? And so now we're looking at these things like, okay, so what are the tools now? So if I put myself to task and I'm like, okay, I'm wake up early in the morning, I'm gonna get my cold plunge on, I'm gonna hit the sauna, I'm gonna get a workout in, I'm gonna make sure I sun gaze with the sunrise, I'm gonna, make sure I get my healthy fats and eat my carnivore diet and like all that. Bro, that's just a mess of tasks. It's routines. But where's the ritual? The routine sharpens you. That's good. It helps. But the ritual says, I don't have to do this. I get to do it. And what fills in the space, right? So we're looking at things like, how do we reform this understanding? What are we capable of carrying through that responsibility to take care of ourselves, right? Self-love, self-care is very important. But now we have to remember the initiations that had long gone without being recognized. They are not just symbolic things. They're cellular. They're in our cells. So these routes that we take to do things, it's like it's good, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Because in many ways, if you haven't received that ceremony or rite of passage, then you're an uninitiated man. So there's many men out there because of not having that, they don't know how to be there in the moments of their child's birth or in the moments of their mother's death because they just were never taught and they never saw that designed architecture of beauty, of the
Mm.
sacred and how it can be brought forward. And so, like their nervous system, again, it's just not regulated. So, why would I want to be present for something that's so immense and so unfamiliar and immense and overwhelming that it triggers me emotionally? I can't do it. And so then we have absent fathers, right? You know, we have absent men in the lives of their own families, right? Just say for a son to their parents. It's like, oh, I don't need to take care of my parents anymore. They're just old. You know, I'm gonna put them in the States, we put them in the old folks home, yeah.
Mm.
We let other people take care of them and we pay them money for them to do it, right? So rites of passage are important because it's not that we have to rearrange the man. We just need to bring his beauty out so that he too can praise and grieve the beauty that's around him if he doesn't see the beauty within. And it's not just about function, right? It's transformation. And this is a deep soul confrontation if you really look at it. You know, nervous system work is a foundational tool, but the tools will break. And maybe that's the thing that we need to understand is that we will have broken tools. And we as men need to learn how to repair those tools so we can repair the work that needs to be done. We need to restore ourselves by restoring ourselves. So you may be able to manage your anxiety, but never face your shadow, right? You may be able to use breath work to feel calm, but you avoid the difficult conversations that would break your heart open because you don't want to
Mm.
cry. Because it's dangerous, right? You feel
Mm.
danger. There's danger there. So you might think you're doing the work because it makes you feel better, but feeling better isn't always the same thing as becoming whole. Because
Mm.
you don't get initiated through techniques. You get initiated by surrender, by being broken open. And a container should be there that's strong enough to hold what gets revealed. So
Mm.
it's kind of how I'm talking about it now.
Yeah, man. All of that
All of
massively.
that.
Yeah. Uh, I feel like my journey, just to speak, very succinctly, is like I've started to place these rites of passage before moments that I've needed to be ready for something that I am truly having to surrender to. I know before I got married, I like took myself away and assigned a guide to take me out into the wilderness to go out for 10 days
Mm,
and be like to just be in go out and survive and hunt and forage and be in a completely new landscape where I was guided to really like take a look at myself. And then when I came back, I felt like I could actually feel the commitment and the devotion that I was choosing in the marriage. I could feel it was so different when I came back from that experience because I was like, oh, this is no joke. Like when you choose a woman, you choose a woman. Like I'm not just
mm.
I'm not fucking about anymore.
Yeah.
And before that, I'd like, oh yeah, we get married because that's what we do, and we've been together 7 years, and that's long
Mm,
enough. So I better. Before it was all very of the mind, and now it was like there was this like I've been using the word conviction. It was this deep, like this sort of bodied feeling of like I'm actually I'm not just choosing this right now. I'm choosing all that comes with it moving forward every single moment. And that was a huge shift for me in how I'd approached big moments in my life before, where I'd kind of held my breath and just braced, whereas I
yeah.
could actually come in surrendered to something and let myself like fully have a felt experience as I married my wife. And that to
Yeah.
me was it was actually quite like it was revelatory for me.
Yeah.
Mm,
Hmm.
yeah,
Beautiful. That's a beautiful example, man. Yeah, that's
yeah,
to sum up all the things I said, that right
yeah,
there. That's
yeah.
that's how we can do it.
I
Mhm.
I really feel like that's something that I've seeked it massively, and I've gone looking for it in so many different places. And I
Mm,
think I don't know if this is something you'd like to a thread you'd like to pull on, but for me, like I went to South America and I got to the mountains of Peru, and that
mm,
felt more like home than I've ever felt for some reason. And I think it's because of what you're saying. And the ceremony, prayer, and ritual was just
mm,
it was living and breathing there. So the coca leaves, the cups of
mm,
wachuma, the despacho, all of the offerings, and the way that they would talk to a mountain as if it was as if it was a living, breathing elder, ancestor. That all just like spoke to a deep part of me, which then I realized when I came back home, I could actually identify where I could cultivate that in my my home, or where, you know, where I'm from as well. So
Mm.
like I don't know if this is something, you know, and the
No,
other,
yeah, yeah.
I don't want to get into like the whole what's cultural appropriation, what's not. I don't want to play
No,
those.
no, no.
That's
Me
I'm
either.
done with that surface stuff. But like I think there was a deep part of me that had to go so far from home to find what I was looking for, and it gave me a reference point, and then I got to carry that with me and bring it back and start to grow roots where I knew I needed to be planted, man. Like I'm not meant, I know I'm not meant to live in the mountains of Peru and do that. I knew I had to come home and start to build or like grow these deep roots and start to facilitate a remembering of culture that I believe is, you know, in service to me, my son, my wife, and my community.
Yeah. Yeah, bro. Yeah, I think so. This is a thing too for me, and I'm glad this question is being asked because a lot of what I've learned and how I've come to be is through the Kanaka Maoli traditions, which are here in Hawaii. But I also have my Dakota lineage that I followed through and learned, and I have two other lineages, but I'm mostly known for these two. And so one of the things that comes up for me is that I'm out there, you know, I'm teaching people culture, right? And then I show them certain songs or chants. And then some people, you know, without knowing anything about me, but just, you know, just from what they see on Instagram or whatever, then there's like, why are you going out teaching white people, you know, our culture? So I'm not teaching white people our culture. Where's the white people? You know, because for me, I'm not seeing white people. I'm not seeing any of that. I'm what I'm seeing is what one of my teachers, Stephen Jacobs, had called orphan wisdom, and he learned from also another man named Martin Prechtel. Those are all really good books. For those that are listening, please check them out because
I'll put a list of
um,
those. I've just started reading Stephen Jenkins's, and I've read Martin's book, so I'll put them in a list down in the show notes, guys.
oh man, they're so good. So
Mm.
good. 'Cause a lot of, so just a real quick one with them too is because I had learned from a cultural school from Halau since I was 17 years old. And so I understood it from one way, which was an indigenous man on these islands of Hawaii. I didn't understand the other part of it. So to me at that time when I was young, I saw white people everywhere. You know, I didn't understand it that way. I saw brown people, black people. But through learning with them and learning through my other mentors in the traditions, I started to understand that there is such a thing as the spiritual condition of modernity where people are inheriting, you know, technologies and consumerism and all these different types of identities, but they're not getting teachings. They're not getting wisdoms, life experience, right? There's no rituals, no roots, right? It's just there's no belonging. And so when people come in contact with a very like a living culture that has had their pitfalls, has had their ruptures too, but they maintain themselves in that belonging, you're going to feel at home too. Because maybe whoever's listening, you were not raised by people who remembered how to carry the sacred, but you still feel called to it. You may not know your ancestral songs, but you feel the ache of their absence, just like a phantom limb, you know, something that's been severed. And you may live in convenience, right, and disconnection, but something ancient is inside of you. It's in your cells, it's in your DNA. It still longs to praise and to grieve and give thanks. So it's about this depth that when you experience it, whether it's in Peru, here in Hawaii, or wherever you go, these are the things that allow people to move towards this kind of wisdom that is growing in the cracks. And now you can compost your sorrow amongst those that have this kind of technology, so to speak, because that's the words that we use, right? But it's really a living art form of creating a human being, right? And then comes the practice and then the knowing and then there's the devotion, right? Not just the discipline of a person who can remember these things that you were never taught but have experienced from another people, almost like you are being fostered into something because you are a cultureless orphan, right? And so it's a return, and that's what I'm seeing for people when I choose to go out there and I teach them about, hey, here's a chant for the sunrise, and then they learn that chant. The activation of that is to get you out to appreciate the sunrise. I'm not just like, hey, learn Hawaiian things. No, that's not the purpose of it. Even the chant that I teaching people is all baby food. Children know this stuff. You know, I learned that when I was a kid. So it's just I'm just in the art of memory, the act of remember, an agent of remembrance,
Mm.
so that we can start bringing back these the elemental ways. Go back to elementary school, going back in that way. Not let's bring the past forward and reset everything. No, I'm just saying, let's bring back what we had that was so true to us and our souls and to the places that we live in so that we understand how to belong and be in reciprocity with these places, right? To care for them more deeply, to be stewards of things,
Mm.
right? Life tenders. So when I think about it too, it's if you don't if you're not functioning on an origin story that asks of you to participate in the world around you that way, and the creation story is, oh, you have dominion over all land and everything that's around you, then of course you're going to behave as such. But if you've learned, manhood and masculinity from a society that's not driven by metrics and they're not using movies or, you know, media to interpret that thing, then they're going to understand that, hey, the well is dry. We need to go get the water of remembrance again and fill up that well. And, or maybe get to the actual wild water where the spring used to be and uncover that one as well. So that's what I see is like when you have the taste the taste of real food, because there's a people still cooking the old recipes, then yeah, you're gonna feel like this is home
Mm.
because it's inside of you. And that's the thing. That's why I tell everybody is like what I'm teaching is baby food. This
Mm.
isn't, I'm not giving the sophisticated, complex things that I know of because of the initiations and rites of passage that I went through. I'm just giving people simple things. Hey, here's a song for the moon. Here's a song for the sun. Here's a song for the land. Here's a song for the grieving. Here's a song for the men. Here's a song for the women. It's real simple stuff.
Mm.
Yeah.
Man, I love all of that. That is all like it's all, a big part of the work that we do here in Australia with the men's work that we're building is bringing back some element like some rooted cultural things of like learning songs, learning dances, and learning things that men's work in Australia hasn't necessarily been known for. Men's work in Australia has been ice baths, holotropic breath work,
Yeah.
bashing pillows and screaming at the top of our lungs. But
Yeah.
there's been this whole like new world that's opened up to me through Sweat Lodge initially, and then
Mm,
through Vision Quest, which I've recently just the last 2 years I've been working with a lineage from Mexico. But
mm,
then a whole other piece came through a brother that's a mytho-poetic. He's like a mythologist, and he tells the stories of
yeah.
from Ireland and from Scotland and from England. These beautiful
Yeah.
stories, and
Who's that? Martin Shaw?
he worked with Martin Shaw. He's a brother. His name is
Ah,
Leon Costa. He's an Australian man, and he went and worked with
right
Martin
on.
Shaw. So
Yeah.
he comes to our events and he weaves the myth, and
Yeah.
he takes something that could be just a process and turns it into this mythological like mammoth of an
Yeah.
experience, man. And
That's what's up.
when you said baby food, I was like, when he speaks, I feel like I'm at prep, like I'm a 4-year-old listening to the story of going on a bear hunt. You can't go under it, you can't go over it, you've got to go through it. And he's telling the story of Iron John and telling the story of, my son's name is O'Sheen because I heard him tell the
Mm,
story, The Birth of O'Sheen, which is a love
mm,
story. And I was like,
mm.
oh man, that's got such deep roots. And what I've taken from, my experience of like song and story is that it nourishes me in a way that no other practice does. And what
Mm.
I feel is like I feel that when we have culture, we have stories to share. And when we have stories to share, we can sit around a fire and then we start to naturally just do elemental things,
Yeah.
which is like you said, it's baby food. It's like simple seems to be pretty spot on for most men. Like simple is best in, I always say let's do the simple things well. And I look back on
Yes.
my child and and then like going to Peru and witnessing how they build a fire for the
Yeah.
despacho or witnessing how they do the offerings, and then I start to and learning how to use tobacco a little more appropriately. And
Mm.
as I then came home and I started to see how in my family dynamics and in my community, we've been trying to do it.
Yeah.
We've been trying to find ways, and we go camping and we light a fire and we do the things, but we don't necessarily have a relationship with it. It's a thing.
Right.
And this is what I've just recently learned through a book called Braiding Sweetgrass, which is like blowing
Yeah.
my mind, bro.
Yeah.
Like that book should be given to every single man. I
Yeah.
I learned that a fire isn't something, it's someone. and that when they would track an animal, they would say someone has been here, not something. And I learned, I was like, wow, how many things do I assign object to? Do I assign them as an object
Yeah.
rather than an entity, like a sentient being? And it made me laugh because that's just my natural thing, is to claim ownership or to
Hey.
dehumanize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's been like for me, like this practice of song, story, and stillness in nature, they've all started to like almost reanimate life for me, like bring the animist back, the animistic nature of life back, where I'm like, cool, I
Yes.
can actually talk to this tree, and this tree might have something to tell me if I sit long enough and ask the right questions. And maybe if I clear up the rubbish here at the campsite and I actually start to be in relationship. And that's what's been blowing my mind personally, man. It's like I can have a relationship with anything. So I'd love to like maybe just drill a question in here for you, is like, what role does relationship play in a man's life? And for me, what I've noticed is men see a relationship as a means to an end. If I have a relationship, it means I've got someone at home that I can come home to and I'm not lonely and this, that, the other. But I've just taken like my learnings of relationships are going, are being blown out of the water personally. So I'd love to know what role relationship plays, for a man that is, finding culture in his life again.
Yeah, brother, this is good. This is a good question. So, yeah, I'm gonna take it back to when you were saying about men's work being about breath work, holistic breath work, and ice baths and things, and then I want to get into the other parts. So,
Mm,
um, when we look at things, right? So our relationship to that stuff, um, it's all inherent to the human being, right? Movement, right?
mm,
Movement is life. Just like ceremony can be life, right? But how did the two merge? How do we understand that, these things that we're doing as ice baths is just us coming back to the water. Us sun gazing is just us coming back to the power of what's in the air, and then us, even doing our fitness routines and things like that is coming back to the land. So when you have someone that can kind of take these complex things, or let's say like foodstuffs and ingredients, put them into one big recipe, put them in a pot, put it into the cauldron and make a magical brew. And then you have somebody like the mythopoetic man you talked about, like Leon.
mm,
Now he's serving you up something that he created because he's a cook in the kitchen, right? He's chefing for you. In however many ways that he does it, it's beautiful because it's needed, right? Because we talk about baby food. Well, normally, if the baby needs to start to get teeth, right, you got to chew up some of the more difficult things and give a little bit at a time, right? So that's part
mm,
of the baby food work too. And I believe in the mythopoetic way that this man and others like him that have walked the path before him, that's what they do for us. They help us chew some of this food by chewing it first and giving it to us. So when we look at that, right, we have this very stark contrast between, self-serving modalities to help me as an individual, and then actually the storytelling to restore ourselves that helps the community, right? And so all of that, and when we talk about the men's work, and this is relationships, right? Well, why do we not understand natural law? Right? You talk about Robin Wall Kimmerer, right? Natural law, which is land, air, and water. Okay, land, air, and water. With these teachings, these rituals, these land-based practices, all these types of things, right? Like, what happened to us, right? That now that we objectify things, we dehumanize them, we look at them as tools, right? Because we're using them all the time. We're on the phone, we're in the whatever. And so, of course, when we come from a place of learning about the world around us, if it's coming from a place of like, let's say, imperialism, right? Then whatever is around is either going to be used as a resource and to be extracted, or it's just in the way, so I have to remove it. And that includes people too. That's not just land, air, water, and animals. So land becomes property, not kin, because we forgot. And not only did we forget, it was severed and it was promoted for us to not understand our ceremonies and our food and what's in our bones and our ancestors. So restoring land should be the men's work. Restoring land means learning to belong again, not to dominate. It means to relearn this thing of life tending and stewardship, reclaiming that relationship. It means protecting and planting and tending, not just taking. So a man without relationship to land will always have a severance to the relationship that he has to his own mother and the women in his life, because he'll always seek that power and dominance over it, right, in artificial ways. And so this is a little bit deeper than what most people I'm sure are familiar with, because I don't know who's listening to your podcast, but I'm gonna go there. And so the same is with our breathing. Right? I love breath work. I do. And I utilize certain methods that I've learned over the years as a way for people to connect to spirit, right? The animism, the wind that is always coming in and out of us, right? And that breathing, that breathing can be the prayer. However, when the air is polluted, right? And this is just on a personal level, by lies, by noise or distraction, then we forget how to speak clearly. We forget how to listen deeply. We forget how to breathe with the world and into the world, because now we're only using it as a way, as a tool to get us to a certain place, right? To a cathartic experience, to a peak experience, so that now we can somatically move to think, oh, it's this big thing, right? But what about the words that we could, or do we have some brevity and clarity and respect upon the way that we speak? Which means in the word there is life, in the word there is death. So are we speaking words that build, or are we speaking about brands, right? Are we clearing our mental fog with some silence in nature and speaking from the heart? Or are we just dancing around the damn thing and creating, a puppet show, and we're all on stage without presence? So when a man can actually breathe as something that is of ceremony to help them clear the air of themselves, then they can bring that to others. And it's the same thing with restoring the water. The water is always pure. It's the other particles that are in it that pollutes it. But water is pure. It's always pure. Whenever we filter the water, guess what we get? Fresh water, water to drink. And that's the emotion. That's the memory. Water, as I've come to understand, is the daughters of the sun and moon, right? Rivers and streams. They're making their way to great-great-grandma, the ocean. Every single one goes there. So it's a feminine intelligence. And it's those tears that should be allowed, are the same things that the rivers demand of us whenever we step into that river, because we're never the same person once we step out. You're not the same man twice whenever you step into a body of water. So men that are cut off from the water are cut off from their ability to feel and to grieve and to cleanse and to flow. And then you see it, right? What do we do to rivers? We dam them up so we can get hydropower, right? All these things. So what does it mean to restore the water? Well, let's get back to natural law. Animism is key. Animism is the beauty of a faith that I practice, because it involves all religions. It doesn't matter which one that you claim or the one that claims you, because it's not about worshiping the things that are around us. It's giving them praise and taking care of them. And the conversation isn't, oh, you should give all your prayers and recognition to the creator of all. I mean, how? How so? How so? When I'm actually here and I need to eat and drink and to be alive. And if those things aren't taken care of, then I'm poisoning myself and those around me, because I just don't care. I don't have the right relationship. I'm not in right relationship. If a man cannot cry those losses, then he cannot lead. I do not believe, because he's not able to listen to what's been lost. And so to me, it's those relationships first, with the men's work. It's like, if we're going to gather together, we better be gathering together to build something that looks like restoration. Because we can't restore ourselves unless we take care of natural law, land, air, and water. In whatever form that takes, because there's a lot of beautiful technologies out now today that I enjoy and that I'm involved in and I'm learning more of, that is bringing me even clearer to the path that, like, oh, this can happen a lot sooner than I thought. Some of the things I'm working on here on Maui, just a quick example, is that there's agroforestry that I've learned. It's entropic agriculture from my really good friend. We partner in a nonprofit called McCall but he taught me this way. He can revitalize, old plantation land that was chemically, saturated and also extracted to the soil, is now dead without nutrients and minerals. And plastic, just layers and layers of black plastic, so that they could continue to grow the crop, right? Whether it be pineapples or sugar or whatever. So what he could do with entropic agriculture was 8 years. And then now he's learning these other methodologies that involve indigenous microorganisms, like from Korean natural farming. And he can advance full restoration of the soil in 2 years. So then now we can take everything into a mature forest, and what nature would normally do in like 30 plus years, with human engagement, contribution, and stewardship and life tending, we can bring all that back in like 5 years. So that's the men's work in my mind. It's like, great, we have things that we need to move through. That's just the first step. That's baby food. Because we didn't have those rites of passage, right? We weren't understood in our initiation. So yeah, let's do that first. Let's scream and yell and hit pillows. Let's do our breathing. But then we have to grow up and put the boy things away.
Mm.
get back to land, air, and water. So that to me is the relationship.
Yeah, man, that makes so much sense. That makes so much, especially the piece that I talk to men around the dam, the swamp, and the river, and only one of them flows back to the source. And the way that you explain that as the sons and daughters of the sun of the sun and moon, or yeah, like that makes so much sense to me. Like that's it's an of course, of
Mhm.
course that makes sense. And for a man to have a relationship with land, air, and water, he then has a relationship with life. He can then like have a relationship with yeah, it makes, the foundations are in place.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
foundations are in place because it's so here's another piece, right? So we're I'm a modern person too. I'm functioning and I got bills to pay, everything else, and I
Mm,
provide services. I also am very engaged. So what I do here in my community, is to bring people to that. I have my sweat lodges, I have my grief ceremonies and communal work, but then I'm also out there, in a way so that I can provide for my family
hmm
because that's key. But I don't lose sight of the natural law. It's all part of invigorating a channel so that these resources can be used in a reciprocal way to give and receive. So the
mm,
more I can hold and the capacity I can hold emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, that capacity grows and grows and grows. Now I can start distributing, right? So it sounds
mm,
natural, right? Because we've been shaped by systems designed for control, not for connection,
mm,
right? We are raised as men to be useful, not soulful or emotional or tuned into these things, which comes with so much value when we do. But
mm,
we're looking at things as products and commodities, right? Properties. And so what do? We take them for granted. So how many times within myself have I taken myself for granted? How many times have I killed the dreams of that little boy? How many times have I abused him,
mm.
right? And you look at the world around you, you tell me when it started, right? It's what I inherited too, as a modern man with indigenous roots. It's so just adding that to it, it's like we're not here to conquer the mountain. We're here to listen to them. And
Mm,
I didn't say it. I said them
mm,
on purpose because we need to know that there are things going on, whether you're drilling the earth for oil or mining or whatever it is, or can you still offer your prayers? Can you still honor what you're doing as a modern man who's never taught belonging but only taught ownership? How do you still do that? How do you still find meaning through your achievement and through your relationships? Right? And that's
mm.
a big question.
And how, like, the question that people, men come to me like, well, how do I make the time for that? Is it which I think is such a funny thing because, like, after witnessing it in Peru and then practicing it back here, it becomes ritual, and ritual just becomes a part of life. Like you said, I think you said life is ceremony or ceremony is life. Those things start to
Yeah, yeah.
become rhythm, and it's so funny. What really started me in most of this work was working with the plants and the teachers over in Peru. But then I came back and I started the most simple thing. It was called Men's Weekly Connection. And what we
Yeah.
would do, we called it our nervous system reset. We'd go out to these beautiful cascades, these rock pools, and we'd sit
Mm,
and we'd meditate and we'd breathe and then we'd hop in the water. And over
mm,
time, we started to build ritual around it. When we get there, we'd offer prayers to the water first. We'd open up the four directions. We'd do this, and we start to just like build a whole ritual around it. So there was an offering before we actually took from the place, and it
yes.
became this. I truly believe it became like one of the most important things in my life, and I don't think I would have been able to stay in my relationship or stay the course of building my
Yeah.
business if I didn't have that Saturday morning and I didn't have those men that were standing in a circle with me doing the practices as well. And what was so funny, man, is that those those four things, song, story, stillness, and movement, they all started to become the cornerstones of what we were doing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So
It's
man,
amazing.
yeah. And yeah, we're sitting on a beautiful, 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 rocky cascade with the water flowing, the breeze, the land, air, and water. We were remembering in a way, I guess.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And many times it's just the invitation because they're always there.
Yeah.
They are. It's
Yeah.
just you just take the invitation. you
Mm,
know, and by being invited, acknowledge that invitation.
mm,
That's simple, right? And that's what I hear you were doing. It's the most simplest thing.
mm.
We show up at a place, we acknowledge that. We give our offerings. And offerings are wonderful because they're offerings. You give them freely
Yeah.
without any expectation. You're just there. And so it's like you don't have time for that? What do you mean? What do you mean you don't have time to give something of yourself? I mean, people are more willing, to give away things than they are to like hoard them. Most people.
Mm.
But then when there's a few of us within the larger collective that's always trying to reserve that and try to keep it close, then it makes us all start to now our nervous systems are like dysregulated because we're like, what's this guy's problem?
Mm,
Why is he not acknowledging the invitation?
mm,
And it's here. And it's very present. It's like when you have all the men come around, I'm sure maybe some of them are a little bit hesitant because they're still in their little boy.
mm.
They're afraid, but at least they're there, is what I'm
Yes.
trying to say. It's like they made the time.
Yeah, man. I know we're coming up to time, but another thing that I learned through braiding sweetgrass was the honorable harvest, and
Yeah.
this blew my mind because I thought I was very much just take what I need. I was super scarcity, take what I need. I'm not going to take any more than that. And then
Yeah.
I went like, fuck that, man. I'm going to take what I want because I'm a man and masculine is all about doing and being penetrative. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to live on purpose, right? So it
Yeah.
became about, I'm going to take what I want because I'm Jacob and I'm worthy of everything that I desire. And
Yeah.
then when the in this book, they talk about take what is given. I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
That's
like,
simple.
dude, I was like, oh, so I've gone from like this codependent, I need to I want and I'm independent and you're going to give me what I want or else I'm the king of the castle into this
Yeah.
beautiful interdependent place, man. This interdependence. And I was like, wow, what a beautiful take what is given. And it all came back to me because in Peru, I built out a mesa with the koyas, the sacred stones from all the
Mm,
mountains, and I was like, oh, I can't take anything from these mountains, man. I don't want to be that guy. And it was so
mm.
beautiful what one of the teachers, the Paco, said. He said the mountain will want to if the mountain wants to give you a stone, it will tell you. And
Yeah.
how do you feel when you want to give someone to when you've got something to give to someone, an offering, and they say no? How does that make you
Yeah.
feel? And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh shit, boom. So, the beautiful thing of the mess, like the collecting the koyas for the mesa
Yeah.
was just like such a lesson in like taking what is given, but also me learning to receive as that little boy that just is
Yeah.
so engaged with the animistic world, man. And I'll just finish
It's
this story.
beautiful.
That
Hmm.
that mesa with all of these beautiful koyas from all through Peru, from all the sacred mountains, actually got stolen and they threw it out the window in that valley where we would go to the men's cascades. My backpack
Mm.
got stolen. They actually threw it in there and it became an offering to that valley in a weird, messed up way. And I thought I'd lost it.
Wow.
And it was a full circle moment, man. That I was just I was reading this book and I was like, everything was sort of collapsing in on this page. So, man,
Wow.
everything that you've been saying, man, has been so it's thank you because it's made me feel understood. And that's something that as a man, especially a white
Oh,
man,
yeah.
dude, like for me, I've always felt misunderstood for, believing in magic, believing in this way. And
Yeah.
the way that you've explained everything today, man, has been deeply it's soul food for me, man. So thank you.
Yeah, bro.
Mm,
Yeah, all the way. I got you. Thanks for having me. And I really appreciated the questions and the stories that you share
mm,
are just wonderful, man. It's just,
mm.
just sharing a little bit more about your life. And because when we met each other, we didn't get to do all that. We went straight into the work, with Sacred
Yeah.
Sons. And it's cool. Like, but I don't really get to know people. I get
Mm,
to see them in those really deep parts of themselves, but I didn't really get to know the man.
mm,
I got to see the story unfold and to be of
mm,
service to that. But so I really appreciate this time that we could talk and hear your stories, brother.
mm.
Yeah, it's landed in so many places of me too. So just yeah, along that reflection as well is like, we share ancestral roots, don't we? You've got some Celtic in you.
Yeah. Majority Celtic. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
there we
man.
go.
Amazing, bro. Thank you. Thank you so much. people, where can people find you, man? Do you want me to
Yeah.
direct them to your Instagram?
Yeah, so one of the things about the work that I do is that yeah, if they ever want to get in tune with what I do is Instagram, just my name, Kale.Kaalehaki. But I also have my Now Academy, which is my online membership, and that's a really good one, man, because that one is like if you feel aligned to the things that I'm saying, then you get a deeper dive into what that means and what I do, and I'm here to teach people. And so I do 4 live calls a week, and then I got a whole classroom that gets you situated for 7 days free and everything else like that. And then do introductory calls, for people. Then the other thing as well is that I'm a co-founder of Sacred Sun, so I still do those events as well. I have one called Maui Mana, but this one is coming up soon in May. But there'll be other ones, so that's how people can find me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I just want to plant a seed, dude. Yeah, I run a thing called the Gathering of Men, which is a convergence of all the men's communities in Australia, and we
Oh,
we
cool.
bring a whole heap of dudes together for 4 days. And one of our prayers is to invite guys from different places in the world. So yeah, man, like I'm just planting a seed that one day we would love to have you. If you ever feel called to come back to Australia and share your medicine with
Oh,
us, yeah, we'd love to have you, bro, and we'd love to talk about that. Next year or the year after, we're going to be around banging the drum. So
hey.
whenever it aligns, man, we would love to have you.
Oh, brother, I'd appreciate that so much. Yeah, the call coming back to Australia has been strong, so I would love that, man. So thank you for bringing that up. And lastly, I just like to say, for those still listening, just remember that a man cannot protect what he doesn't love, or he just won't. He just won't. But he also cannot love what he doesn't remember. So just remember these things that we share, and the hope is that Jacob, you continue on your path, health, happiness, and harmony to you and your family, your ohana, to
Mm,
your wife and your baby boy, and the work that you do for the men in your community.
mm.
Yeah, strive on, my brother.
Yo, man, thank you so much.
Hey.
Yo, peace out, beautiful people. Thank you so much for listening.